and welcome to Working Together. In this series of interviews, we explore the value of collaboration, cooperation and co-working in business and speak to some inspiring business people to learn how collaboration supported their business journey. If you don't know me already, my name's Beth. I'm the operations manager at the project. We are Brighton's independent members club for entrepreneurs and small businesses. We provide an online and offline space for innovators and creatives to develop their business, co-work and collaborate. This week, I'm chatting to Mo Kanjilal, who is the co-creator of Watch This Space, and that is a consultancy service supporting businesses to harness the power of diversity and inclusion. Mo is also a freelance sales director for Kiss the Fish and part of the team behind Brighton Digital Women, and we're really happy to have her with us today. So thank you so much for joining me, Mo.
Hi.
Hi. So Mo, tell me about Watch This Space and what you do.
So Watch This Space is a consultancy which is to look at diversity and inclusion in organisations. So what we want people to do is challenge how they do things and reimagine a better way. And so what we do is work on kind of all aspects of organisations. So the people, how they recruit, how they train, how they mentor people through their career journeys, how they make decisions in the business, what kind of methods they use, how they include people in making sure people have a space where they feel they can contribute, kind of all of those things. And we're about being quite challenging, actually. So, for example, one of our early workshops is, could you survive a zombie attack? And it's basically saying to businesses who, a lot of businesses suddenly had to go, right, how are we going to do this? So it's kind of using that concept and saying, actually, could you survive it? And what do you need to do? Because the way to get up and running the quickest is to have a really diverse team to do that. So it's kind of working on those sorts of concepts to get people thinking about how they can do things in a better way.
What are some ways that you can survive a zombie attack?
Well, the premise is, so we've got a couple. One of them is, could you survive a zombie attack? And the other one is, could you explain yourself to aliens? And the idea behind it is to be quite challenging and say, okay, so if a species of aliens came along and you had to explain to them how you do things, how would you do that? And how have you made those decisions? And have you really thought about including everybody in those things? Because there's all kinds of stats and research that show if you include a wide range of people, you get to decisions quicker and they're better decisions. So it's about how to help people to do that.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think for so many businesses, I think it's completely fair to say that diversity and inclusion can be a bit of a tick box exercise rather than like what your business is going to benefit by having the wider voices. So I think that's a really...
Yeah, it's one of those things where I've seen a lot of kind of diversity inclusion teams set up, reports written, surveys done. Those things are not changing anything. There's a clear business case for it. There's all sorts of reports that have been done that show diversity actually makes you more money, but it's still not happening. It's still not being addressed. So it's really about how to unpick those things and work with people to help them to do that, because it's clearly not happening with all these teams and things at the moment.
Yeah, that's really valuable, isn't it? You kind of were set up in a collaboration, weren't you? So how did you kind of all come together?
Yeah, so we are the three of us that run it. So it's Allegra Chapman, Rachel Pearson and I. We are the team behind Brighton Digital Women. There's quite a few of us, but we're part of that team. And Brighton Digital Women is about events, usually before the apocalypse. It was events in the evening for people in Brighton to talk about different aspects of work, and we have different speakers, and it's to help people with their careers. We do all kinds of things in that group. We've had to transition to online, obviously, recently, but the time and space we had in lockdown got us talking and saying, actually, we'd all like to do something more about this, and what could we do? And it kind of came from that, with us sharing ideas and saying, actually, I think it's time to think about making this into a business. So that's where Watch This Space came from.
How does diversity support collaboration within organisations?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So if you think about a decision you need to make, something really simple like, I don't know, what colour should we paint all the rooms in a building, or how should we decorate them? If you only have certain types of people making those decisions, you're not going to get to the best decision for the wider workforce. But if you include everybody, you automatically start to collaborate more because people feel involved. So they don't feel like a decision is enforced on them because they have their chance to have their say. But also the decision you get to is better because you've considered more options by having the diversity of people in that group to think about it. So it's one of those things that it drives, if you think about including everyone all the time, which is a hard thing for organisations to do, but if you do that, you will get more collaboration from that because people don't feel like things are being inflicted on them. They feel like they're part of the conversation.
In your opinion, why do you think it is such a hard thing for businesses to think about, like, including everyone? Obviously, like, particularly in Brighton, our demographic is very white heavy, and we've not done in my opinion, a very good job across businesses of being really inclusive. I think Brighton's been a city where lots of people, we've got this reputation of being really inclusive, but maybe our actions aren't included. I mean, what would you say to those businesses about what the benefits are?
Yeah. So there's a few bits to that. So first of all, there are some reasons why I think it doesn't happen. I think for starters, people generally recruit people who are like them, who remind them of themselves. It's just a natural thing. And if you don't challenge those unconscious biases, you're going to end up with teams of people very like you. It's just a natural thing that we should all accept instead of trying to deny it. That is what happens. So the only way you're going to challenge that is by looking at how you recruit and your processes and doing things. There's lots of ways you can do that. Some companies do things called blind CVs where the names and things aren't on there, or you can use not a CV, you can use like statements, different ways of hiring so that you don't see names and demographics of people. There are lots of different things like that you can do to actually make your workforce more diverse. So that's the first thing, is like a kind of natural thing that people generally recruit people like themselves and further people who are like themselves too. There is an emotional thing in that as well, so it's the emotional connection. So if you mentor somebody, or you in your company have a mentoring program where people are matched with people different to themselves, they start to build up that emotional connection with someone different, and then they will automatically help further their careers. So those things can work and really help. Reports, as I've said, reports, surveys, stats, they tell you why it's worth doing. They absolutely do. So there's some really good studies out there that show you why diversity makes you more money, but that doesn't seem to happen. So there needs to be more to it. There are some good videos that look at that kind of thing. So I don't know if you've heard of Accenture's video, Inclusion Starts With I. It's used at a lot of conferences. So things like video can help to show people why they should think about diversity and inclusion, but they don't, it's a difficult one to consider. It really does require a grown-up conversation saying we need to do something about this, and setting up diversity and inclusion teams, think about who's heading those up, because if it's the same people heading those things up, then nothing's going to change. So how do you actually have some different people leading those conversations and different ways of doing things? It's how you actually have those discussions as well. So there's a lot of all those kind of things done in a meeting, the like stage of a meeting, which doesn't suit everybody. If you're an introvert, that's not a great format to come up with your brilliant ideas. Even with Zoom, with sort of video meetings, you see certain people dominate and other people don't. Some people need more time to think about something, so they can't just think in the meeting. They need to know beforehand so they can have a think about it. Some people don't feel comfortable, speaking up in that space. So you've got to think about all of these things to start to really tackle the problems and address it. And it's I think it's a real Brighton-wide problem. So 10% of the population is from an ethnic minority background, but there's no representation on the council, for example, none of the councillors. So, and that's just one example. I haven't picked them out, singled them out. That's one example. I could pick out lots of businesses that are exactly the same. There's no representation at all, and then it makes it really hard to have those conversations.
Absolutely. I guess with businesses themselves, if they are wanting to be more inclusive, obviously you're saying to just like challenge your unconscious biases, but and etc. But what are the other kind of main mistakes that businesses are making to make people feel excluded?
So to make people feel, it is things like feeling like you're part of the conversation. So if things are just told to you, or you're instructed to you, you're not part of the discussion. So it's involving people and thinking how to do that. there's lots of different methods and things you can do to start thinking about that. But until people start recruiting people into businesses and helping them with their career. So there's some research I would be interested to see the results of. I don't know if anyone's doing a study in it, but even if you recruit people from different backgrounds, how long do they stay in the business and do they progress their careers? Or do they actually join and find that it's too hard and go and do something else, which I suspect is what happens.
Absolutely. It'd be really interesting we're both Brighton and Hove based. It'd be really interesting to see even just like a survey or, a poll about what businesses are doing. And there's been a lot about the gender pay gaps and things like that, but I don't think it's mandatory to show your diversity in any sort of reporting.
It's not. There is a survey out at the moment in Brighton. The Diversity Working Group, which is a collaboration of lots of different businesses, has a survey out at the moment, one for employers and one for employees, to try and gather some of that information. We are trying to do that, but it's not, people don't have to say. It's not mandatory.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be really interesting to see if that does change. As we're aware, like you say, not to call out Brighton Council, but we are in a city that has been, run.
Yeah.
White people. Did you say it's all white people?
Yeah.
Council. So it would be, really interesting.
I don't know why they're in the council, but the actual councillors, yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be really interesting to see, the results of that survey and if they're reflective, and, if we're able to kind of put more pressure onto the council, onto businesses. Cool. What was it, that survey again? There's
the Diversity Working Group survey, which is out. It's in collaboration with lots of different businesses. So, there's if you have a look online, or we can share the links to it.
Yeah, I think so.
2 surveys, one for employers and one for employees.
That'd be really good to share, so that we can get some really good information about that. We have to kind of recognise, are there any potential pitfalls to consider when you're with diverse teams working together?
You're going to have disagreements because there'll be different perspectives. So there are some stats on this. So if there's diversity in a company, in the decision-making teams, there's 19% higher output of innovation, because those teams consider more options and come up with more creative solutions. So that's kind of the business case. They also make decisions with half the number of meetings. So that's great, because it means that those things are going to happen quicker and you're going to get lots of creative ideas. However, there are going to be more disagreements. And again, there's a few surveys out, stats that show this, that those teams will have more friction in the discussions and in the group. And just adding one different perspective means more debate, and they consider more options in that discussion, in that meeting, but they come out with a better solution because they've considered way more options. So I think it's probably to acknowledge that there will be disagreements, because it's not going to be all the same people all agreeing with each other. It's easier to just hold a meeting with all people that are likely to agree with you. That's much easier than including lots of different voices.
And I guess then that what it will mean is a lot of trust in your employer, that if you do voice a different opinion to the norm, and you are introducing different voices into a discussion, that if you are you're kind of creating a culture where these voices and like disagreements are valued, and it's seen as a positive thing rather than someone being seen as like aggressive or seen as being like fractious. And I guess that there need to be a commitment, a verbal or written commitment from employers to say we genuinely welcome hearing your voice and be sanctioned.
It takes leadership. So I speak as somebody who's been called difficult, aggressive, all those things for voicing my opinions in every company I've worked in, pretty much, because I often have a different opinion to people, and it takes a good employer that will allow you to do that. because actually you then get to a better decision, because I'm not always going to be right, but if you include all the different voices, you debate things more and come to a better decision together. But the leadership of the company or whatever organisation has to support the fact that there are going to be these disagreements, allow everybody to have their say rather than it always being the same kinds of people.
Absolutely, and I think I saw something. I think it's by I'm going to have to link his name. I can't remember his surname, but on Instagram he's just Stephen, and he runs Social Chain, and he was saying we need to reframe discussions and arguments with people who are from have a different experience, a different background with us. It's not you two against each other; it's you and them against the problem.
Yeah.
I think, like, if we can in companies reframe how we address issues and not, take someone saying the status quo isn't right, the status quo isn't good enough, and not see that as an attack. And
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it'll be so much beneficial for everybody. But I do.
Yeah, because I was going to say that the sort of structures of companies have been designed a long time ago, kind of the way we work, by one type of person, if you like, or one group of people. So it makes sense that it doesn't suit everybody. So, for example, parents, the current structures of work don't suit everybody. And actually, businesses that said before they couldn't operate remotely, well, they've done it now, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, those things are all going to change. This is another area we're working on, actually helping businesses with flexible working, because now you can't say, well, it doesn't work if people work remotely, if they work from home, because people have. That's what's been happening, and it kind of needed to happen because things have to be done differently. We can't just go on with everything being the same. And I have this feeling that after the 2008 financial crash, only some companies came out of that and continued, and it was the ones that kind of adapted quickly to the change. And I think it's going to be the same with this. If companies don't adapt, they won't survive it. So it'll be the ones that are open to change and adapting that do.
Absolutely. I mean that has been one thing that's from the pandemic. It's kind of gone like everybody. It wasn't that we're not able to. It was just a will to.
Yeah.
I think that's been a really good lesson for lots of change that can happen. It's like, you can do it. You just don't want to. And that'll be fascinating to see what businesses kind of come out on top from everything.
Yeah.
You're a very busy woman. And I know that you're also a mentor for the Girls Network, the charity. So what for you is the value of working with a mentee?
So I used to commute, so I never had any free time. So after I stopped doing that and I worked in Brighton, I had more time, and I wanted to do something with that time because it'd be so easy to not and just kind of fritter away the time. So I found the Girls Network and decided to mentor for them, because when I was young, I really could have done with someone to talk to about careers and different options, and kind of opening your eyes to the things that are available that you can do, because you don't know when you're young, you've got no idea. And if you don't have people around you doing lots of different things, it's quite difficult. And so that's when I joined the Girls Network. So I've been doing that for a while now. So you partner with a girl and mentor them for a year. So you meet them once a month, although at the moment, obviously, it's remotely. And it's to just talk things through with them. It's for them to have someone different to talk to. And there's a program that you follow. Common things they ask is, when you were 15, did you know what you wanted to do? No, I had no idea. And that's often a revelation to them. They're like, really? It's like, no, I had no idea. Neither did most of my friends. So it's
lots of the jobs that people, lots of the jobs that people do didn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm 28, but 13 years ago, if I was 15, they didn't exist. So absolutely, there's this world of opportunity that's been created.
Yeah, and it's a good way. I mean, there's lots of benefits to it for yourself as well. I mean, I've found it great fun because you get to know someone completely different, different perspective. They talk about TV shows I didn't know about and all sorts of things like that. But it's also really good from the perspective of somebody, for example, if someone wants to progress their career in management, this is a great way to get some experience in actually helping somebody by mentoring them. So there's lots of benefits for people to do it.
Absolutely. And if people do want to get involved in that, how do they kind of go about it? Do you just contact the Girls Network?
Yeah. So just go to the Girls Network website or give me a shout. I'm happy to help too. And then there's a mentor application process that you go through.
Absolutely. That's super cool. So also alongside your work with the Girls Network and Watch This Space. You're also part of the Kiss the Fish and Brighton Digital Women. That's a lot of network and people to collaborate with. So how do you kind of manage all of those relationships effectively?
I'm a busy person. I like being busy. When we're not in lockdown, I'm normally out most evenings doing different things. At the moment, it's all online events, and my diary is totally filled up with different networking events. So I'm a sociable person anyway. I like to maintain a big group of friends, big group of professional contacts. You can network really well through social media, through LinkedIn, things like that. Generally, just attending events, I find, is a really good way to get to know people. Just generally, I'm quite, just a sociable person, quite interested in other people. So I just always am out and about.
That's a really good point about networking. I think a lot of people go, I've spoken about this before. I mean, once I get to a networking event or an event, I really enjoy it. Generally, the idea of going to a networking event for me is hell. I really struggle with it, and it's like a strange mind block. But I think the reason that I think that is because I'm thinking of going and I've got to like sell the business or like da, 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 da. And it's really interesting when you were saying, I just really like getting to know people. I really like talking to them. Do you think that's a lot of people kind of go around networking the wrong way rather than just like getting to know someone, having a chat?
Yeah, do you know what? Most people that go to networking events feel exactly like you do.
Yeah.
You get that into your head that everyone's feeling like that. It changes things. So when you're at those events, I tend to talk to people who are on their own because they're usually a bit lost, or people in odd numbers. If there's a group of 3, one of them's probably kind of just not sure and like approach that person. Generally, people are just happy to talk to somebody. The other tip I can give you is people like talking about themselves. So if you ask an interesting question about them, they will start talking to you about it. It's just what people do.
That works really well for me because I hate talking about myself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and talk to everyone about this. I think that's a really good point. And then you if you can offer a bit of advice or give more than you received, and then it's going to be so much more valuable rather than going with your business card and selling to everybody, which is
exactly. And then follow up with people as well. So if you've said you'll send them something, follow up. If you said you connect on social media, do it. Actually follow up with people, and then you start to get to know them. I've got to know 3 people through lockdown who I've never met in person.
Well, that's like me and you. We've kind of got together through some of the events we've been doing. I'm looking forward to kind of hopefully in
person. Yeah,
it'll be really good. So Mo, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I think we just need to have a quick, if you could just tell me all of the things you're doing and where we can find you. That would be really good so we can keep up to date on.
Kiss the Fish is www.kissthefish.net, brightondigitalwomen.co.uk, watchthisSpace.uk. What have I missed? That's probably everything. We're on Twitter, all the LinkedIn, all the usual channels. Yeah.
Cool. And what is Watch This Space up to next?
We're very busy. So we recorded a video on Friday. So we're kind of getting ready to launch. Our podcast launched today. So if you go to Watch This Space on Twitter, you can find our podcast, and there's a vote for people that listen to it as well for which option you're interested in. It's about post-pandemic predictions, so it's quite interesting. Check out our podcast. We are working on these workshops, which we're going to launch very soon, which will be online to start with, so people can sign up to actually try, could they survive a zombie attack, or, how do they talk to aliens?
I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah, we'll send you the details.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're very busy working on all of that.
It's amazing. Well, Mo, thank you so much. Obviously, the work that you're doing is always going to be so important. But right now, with this momentum that is building about making sure that you have an inclusive and diverse workspace, it will be fascinating to see where Watch This Space can grow and really supporting businesses to do the right thing and make more money with it. So that makes
sense. Yeah.
Thank you also to everybody for watching this series of Working Together. You can find more about the projects, all the normal places, which is at the project's BTN. We're really looking forward to speaking with Toby Moore from the Content Club in our next episode of Working Together. So thank you again, Mo.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.